The next genre consideration is scale of production. On one end of the spectrum is moderate, and the other end is elaborate. And on the extremes, you could have spectacular, and on the extreme, let's say a number one could be bare bones. Let's say a $100 budget, or a $50 budget, or you do your show outside with two people, or a one-person show with the clothes on your back, with a 5 or 10 minute script, or it could be a 30-minute script or a 90-minute script, depending on how long you could keep people there paying attention to you. A moderate budget, on the other hand, say a 2 on that scale, perhaps your average student production in a high school or in a university setting, where there's a bit of a budget. They have a theater, they pull what costumes they can, in our terms maybe hundreds of dollars. And as you go more and more towards elaborate, let's say here in Chapel Hill, our Playmakers repertory company probably has the largest budgets, and we just did The Importance of Being Earnest here at UNC. And that had a really quite a lovely set. I wouldn't call it spectacular, though. For spectacular, we might look to Broadway with Miss Saigon, where a helicopter flies in, that kind of thing, where it really takes it to the extreme. Notice that I'm keeping those extreme examples almost like in a bell curve, where the preponderance of examples will fall in the middle somewhere, and it's really only extremes that belong in the 1 or 5 category. The next genre consideration is specificity of setting, and both of time and place. On one end of the spectrum we have vague, and on the other end we have specific. Vague, we might say Oedipus Rex, right? Because Oedipus is set in Thebes, so that has some specificity. We know where Thebes is in Greece. But when does it take place? Even in the time of Sophocles, when this was written, it would have been centuries, if not 1,000 years previous, that Oedipus, the historical Oedipus, might have lived. So that is vague in terms of its time, and it's not. It's almost time immemorial. So that brings up a vague quality. With specific, we've read the importance of being earnest. The importance of being earnest takes place in contemporary to when it was written in 1894, 1895. It was in London. There's a particular street named, or certainly a neighborhood that's named. I would keep the extremes of exact and well, let's stick with exact. Let's say number 5 on the scale of specificity, to really specific, as in the September 11th, 2001, 8:20 a.m. on the 82nd floor of the South Tower of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in Office 7. I'm giving an extreme example, but that's what the extremes are made for. And there are plays with that kind of specific guidance given. So we keep that as the extreme. On the other end, abstracted. By that I mean not a situation like Oedipus that does seem to have a time and place implied. This would be something that is taken out of the context of time and place. For example, the play called Everyman. It's a morality play from the 15th century. This is a play where it seems to take place in a spiritual plane where the soul of every man is communing with the aspects of his life that are set in individual characters, but there are such things as family or fellowship or good deeds or beauty. So every man who is the main character has a relationship with these qualities, but there's no sense that, oh, this is taking place in England or the Netherlands where it might have been originally written. Also, for this example, we might find the plays of Samuel Beckett and perhaps other writers of the theater of the absurd, where part of the genre is in the removal of time and place in order to focus more intently on the isolation, perhaps the sense of eternal isolation of the characters. The next genre consideration is tempo of dialogue or action. And on the one hand, you have, on one side you've got a relaxed tempo, and on the other side you've got quick tempo. Comedy will tend to veer towards the faster, and tragedy and drama will tend to be slower. And that does not mean that within a particular play things will not speed up. Obviously, in moments of violence, which do happen in tragedy, the tempo is going to pick up, both of dialogue and of action. On the extreme, we have breakneck pace. This is probably reserved for, well, I guess it could be sword fights in a tragedy. But also, if a play has this kind of pace, it's probably a farce. The importance of being earnest gets close in some sections to breakneck. There's a play called Noises Off that I am reminded of, where there's so much going on so quickly, and part of the joy of watching a play like that is the breakneck pace and just wondering how it's going to all turn out. On the other extreme, we might call it protracted. This is even slower than the relaxed pace of a drama. This is the pace of ritual. If you can imagine, if you attend a church, or if you've ever been to a church or synagogue, I'm bringing up religious examples because there tends to be a pace in those ceremonies that is deliberately protracted. It takes time to move through because it's seen as significant to stop the hurried pace. I think of no drama. No drama, if you read the play, you'll say, oh, it's a short play, it's only 5 pages or 10 pages in the textbook. But then when you sit through it, they take so long to go through it. Each word is chanted out and drawn out. And then there are lengthy moments of dance and a deliberate slowing of the pace.